Today we will take up a conversation of the mother, which is related to this chapter, the physical education. And we will see the questions put to her and her response. Okay. So this is 1954, based on mother's essay, Physical Education. Okay, who wants to start reading today? We'll take up the first question and the first response. Any volunteers?
I can read.
Okay.
Um, Mother, does a person's body formation express his character? No. Even the character itself is not a simple affair. That is, the character of a person is not the expression of his true being, but the result of many things. For example, atavism may be expressed. That is what comes from the father, the mother, from both together, which may have a different result from what has gone before them, the past history, grandfathers, great grandfathers, etc., and then from the environment in which people have lived when they were very young and had no independence at all. That has a considerable effect on the character. And this character affects the physical formation. So, just for seeing somebody, one cannot quite say what his true nature is. One may describe his tendencies, know his difficulties, his possibilities, but it is only with the growth of the consciousness and as the development becomes voluntary and organized that the body can begin to express the true character of the person.
Hmm. So, is it clear?
Yeah.
So, can the body formation express one's character? Sagarika?
Sometimes, matlab, what I feel.
What is the mother saying?
Mother said no.
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Pooja and Ruhi, do you have a different interpretation?
No, what I've seen around me and experienced with myself, and largely, I think what mother says makes a lot of sense
yes, of course.
because the what she's talking about, the atavism about the past history, grandfathers. That's how usually the society and generations and things are shaped, and the people who come from a certain background, they tend to grow in that.
So, I want to highlight this last part. So, the first answer is no. Okay. And then what does she end up with? It is only with the growth of the consciousness and as the development becomes voluntary and organized that the body can begins is wrong. There is some typo here. To express the true character of the person. So body can express the character, but not normally. But when a stage comes where you're you become conscious in the body and you become conscious within, then the body can start expressing. And maybe that's one of the reasons when one sees somebody who's spiritually quite advanced, self realized, their skin glows. There is a, there is a, there is a different aura. Like some people see it as an aura, but you, even if you don't visually see it, you can feel that there is some kind of transparency, and that comes through in the skin, in the body. You get a sense of that, uh, not just subtle, but sometimes even concretely. So, although she begins with a no, in my view, it is possible for the body to express the character, but only at a very, very advanced stage in certain special conditions. Yes, Ila.
But wasn't she talking about body formation? Meaning, like what I understood by body formation was more of the physical aspect, as in, like, big or small or large or flabby or whatever, as opposed to the metaphysical or part.
Yeah, you're right in pointing that out, that the word body formation is seems to say the structure, the very structure of the body, which is kind of, but when she's explaining, see, the word used here is body formation, but when the mother is explaining, she's not really talking of the body formation. When she says environment you grow up in, the people you are surrounded with, etc., etc., the atavisms, etc., then that is more like your behavior and your habits and your nature. It's not so much body formation, is it?
It is because
Character she talks about here.
it is,
Considerable effect on the character.
but
And
it is
character affects the physical formation.
exactly. So the thing is, like, for example, if you see people who have been abused or have been, had a very hard time in life, they tend to be very bowed and stooped, and that's a physical characteristic of something that has happened. All of this that she's talking about, the way they've been, they've been treated as children, how they've grown up, blah blah. So yes, very much, your body actually does take on the physical characteristics of everything that you felt.
Yeah, I just think it is more than when she's responding. I don't know what this person exactly meant. Maybe he meant more the structure, but when she's responding, it seems like she's not referring just to the structure, because the structure is more or less fixed when we are born. You know, if my nature changes my finger, the shape of my finger is not going to change. Mm. But the skin tone may change. We have the real example of Sri Aurobindo, whose people who have described him when he was in Pondicherry in his later years have described him as a rosy. His skin was rosy hued, rose hued. Whereas people who knew him in England, somebody who came to meet him and saw him, he was quite surprised. He said he used to be such a dark person. How has this change happened in this one? Yeah. So that is one example. Okay. But we also see other people who personally, like you are saying, yeah, it's more subtle. But I think I shared this before also, that I can perceive that the hue of the person, I don't see auras and all, but the skin and everything, the face, it starts looking different if the person is, it's not the expression. If the consciousness is low, I don't mean depression, I mean like in quality, it is low, then and even myself, when I look at my face in the mirror, I can see that, oh, today my face is not reflecting the inner or whatever, it is a thing like that. And I'm sure many other people can see many other things. So I feel she's talking about this physical formation, which the character can affect. Like we have seen husband and wife start looking like brother and sister, staying for, how does that happen? So obviously there are changes happening in the body, uh, etc.
I want to just say that I think, can I speak
Yeah, of
right
course,
now?
of course, go ahead.
So I wanted to say that I think I mean, I body formation express his character is one thing, but usually your body formation, as Ela was saying, when you have been abused, you may not have been abused. I'm not only talking about child, like of many years before your present. Say, you're going through a bad patch, then also your body will reflect something else. I don't think it's reflecting your character at that time. It's reflecting what you're going through. You will
Yes,
be hunched,
yeah,
you will probably have your shoulders together, you will feel um, crowded upon and feel, if you're going through a bad patch and you're feeling abused in your current situation, you'll be very different. Uh,
It is also
is
perhaps,
it body language? My question was, is this body language?
yeah, could be body language. This person, when he's asking, one thing which comes to my mind, which has in certain circles, in our circles, perhaps become less, although subconsciously it is still there, I would say. But it is still quite prevalent in society, these stereotypes that if we see somebody roly-poly, generally the tendency is to think, oh, they would be jovial or this or that. There are these stereotypes which are kind of somebody's short, then they'll be like this, somebody's very tall and fair, and this, there, then they might be like that. There are some stereotypes which we carry unconsciously. And till a certain time, we were very vocal also in saying through jokes or through various things. Now, because it's become very, politically conscious, you have to be. So you don't say those things, but we still carry quite a few of them within ourselves if you look back or look for them.
Um,
It is
I
there.
have I wanted to share that maybe the nature that she's talking about and the character, a part of it is that some people have this brilliant energy and their face is always very calm and peaceful, and you feel very drawn towards them, and you immediately start to get attracted. And whereas you see some people, everything would be, I mean, I'm not saying that we know everything about them, but something about them would be very drab and something about them would be very low. And yeah, so maybe that's something that has been shaped by whatever has been their circumstances or their families or whatever.
So let's also look at this differentiation which she makes. So first she talks about how the character is formed through various atavisms, plus even going beyond your parents to grandparents and all them, what you grow up with, the environment, people you live with. Then she says character affects this character which is formed like this, affects the physical formation. And then she says, by seeing somebody, one cannot quite say what his true nature is. Now she shifts from character to true nature. These are two different things. Okay. So one may describe his tendencies, know difficulties and his possibilities, but it is only with the growth of consciousness, as the development becomes voluntary and organized, that the body begins to express the true character of the person. So generally, our true nature cannot be gauged just from our physical appearance. The body language can give the state of our mood. Our actions can give some idea of our character, etc. But the true nature is something different. So this distinction, I think, when we read the vital and the psychic, this distinction will also become more clear. Shall we go ahead? Okay. Okay, this is a longish thing. Who wants to take it up? Shall we read the whole thing in one go? Or shall we stop after these two paras? Let's do that. Pooja, can you read these two paras, the question and these two paras, please?
Sure. And when the body has been deformed by illness, that may be an accident, you know. Accidents are due to many things. In fact, they are the result of a conflict of the forces in nature, a conflict between the forces of growth and progress and the forces of destruction. When there is an accident that has lasting results, it is always the result of a more or less partial victory of the adverse forces, that is, of the forces of disintegration, disorganization. It depends. There are teachings like that of Theosophy, for instance, which take karma in an altogether superficial and human sense and tell you, oh, you have met with this accident because in a former life you did something bad. So that comes back to you in the form of an accident. This is not true, not at all true. This is but human justice. It is neither the justice of nature nor the justice of the divine.
Okay. So actually here, she's talking more about accidents than about this actual question, that what happens when body has been deformed by illness. I suppose we'll come to it later. But it is interesting, the concepts. She, first of all, what is an accident? She's explained that. You know, we take accidents either very lightly or very seriously, but we never give thought to what actually is an accident. You know, we were careless, this happened, that happened. So she says it's a conflict of the forces in nature. Any accident that happens due to a conflict of the forces in nature. Which forces? Forces of growth and progress, and forces of destruction. So these are always at work. So there is always a war going on. And the accident, especially an accident that has lasting results, is always the result of more or less a partial victory of the adverse forces. That is, forces of disintegration, disorganization. Yes, Ila. Oh, you are on mute.
Yeah. So are these forces around us or within us?
Both. Both. She
So,
will come to that.
okay.
Yeah. And then she talks about accidents are not just simple, you know, mathematics that you did that, so this happened to you in a previous life. This topic also she has spoken of more elsewhere, and Sri Aurobindo has also spoken about it. I don't know how much she will clarify this further, but otherwise the concept is quite clear what she's saying, right? Kirti, you want to take up this second part?
Yeah. Naturally, the formations of the body is very important in this. See that if, for instance, one is constantly under the influence of depression, of pessimism, discouragement, a lack of faith, and of trust in life, all this enters, so to say, into one's substance. And then some people, when there is a possibility of an accident, never miss it. Every time there is a chance of something happening to them, they catch it, be it illness or an accident. You have a whole field of observation here. It is always the same people who meet with accidents. Others do the same things, have as many chances of having an accident, but they are not touched. If you observe their character, if you observe their character, you will see that the former have a tendency to pessimism and more or less expect something unpleasant to happen to them, and it happened. Or else they are afraid. We know that fear always brings what one fears. If you fear an accident, this acts like magnet drawing the accident towards you. In this sea, it may be said that it is the result of character, and the same thing holds for illness. There are people who can move about among the sick and in places where there are epidemics and never catch a disease. There are others. It is enough for them to spend an hour with a sick person, they catch the illness. That too depends on what they are within themselves.
Sorry for these typos. There are a lot of typos here. But I think in this case, that's what maybe the word was. But we got the sense. So, here she's talking of this inner atmosphere that we live in. If we are living in an atmosphere of pessimism, discouragement, depression, lack of faith, trust, then it affects the body, and even the physical immunity it will affect. You know, we all of us know when a person is happy, they can overcome an illness faster than when a person is, thinking, I will not get okay, and is depressed. And the same person who an hour ago was depressed and suddenly their children come or somebody comes, they who they love very much and who can inspire them, suddenly their whole energy changes and maybe the fever also goes away. We see these instances with ourselves also and with people in life. So obviously, then it means there is this whole interchange between the mental energy, the psychological state, the physical condition, and the vital, the emotional state. So she's saying this inner atmosphere, if it is a negative atmosphere, then there are greater chances of one being open to these forces of disintegration, because the forces of disintegration are already within me. I'm creating disbalance in myself. I'm moving away from the truth of my being, from my inner peace, harmony, etc. So then disharmony can enter me more easily. And disease is disharmony, basically, imbalance. And yes, we do see that there are some people who are prone to accidents. We say they are careless, they are unconscious in the body, they don't know. If they have to, even in their home, they will bang into a stool, fracture their leg. They don't have to go outside. They can do it very well at home itself. So, but there are others who she says can even go into an epidemic and nothing will happen to them because they are established in a optimism, faith, positivity, and that is like a shield. That acts like a shield. So this is what she's talking about. Anybody wants to ask, say yes, Ila? Unmute, unmute.
The part where she says that fear is what causes the accident. You worry about the accident, you keep, feeling scared, and it actually happens. So I completely believe that, because I think that you actually manifest accidents. You keep worrying that, oh my God, I'm going to have an accident. So, for example, I cycle, right? So, one of the things I tried very hard to not get into my consciousness is about me having an accident, because I'm always worried about it. And I'm so worried that I feel, my God, I don't want to manifest it. So, I have to work really hard to imagine myself always healthy, happy, and, having fun on my bike. Otherwise, if I let myself go down that road, then I feel that I will be creating it.
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything? Everything is clear? Nishi, you want to say something?
Yes, Divya, in fact, that was the word I was thinking of, manifestation, when Ila used it. Is this like manifestation, that you manifest whatever is in your head, you're thinking about it a lot of times, and it becomes your second nature, and somehow you manifest that.
I just want to also give a word of caution. You see, human psychology and the yogic psychology is so vast, and we are just tasting it in bits, bits, bits. Yeah, we don't have, we are not in a consciousness. We are reading it from the mind, and the mind divides and separates into bits. And the mind also has a tendency to oppose and to codify. Now, if I say, oh, mother has said this, now the next time you are ill and you have an accident, I'll say, but you only caused this. It is your who you are inside. You have done it. If I start behaving with that attitude, there might be a truth in it, but that's not the only truth. Truth is manifested, multifaceted. And if we read somewhere else, the mother would have talked about another aspect, why bad things happen in life, uh, other forces at play. So till we reach that kind of wideness, this caution I want to, because quite a few of us are educators or parents, I want to bring it in that one has to be very cautious that not to, now say, now I'm going to rigidly apply and interpret everything that happens through this lens. This is we are just building up our understanding of multiple things that happen in the consciousness. But always this link between the outer and inner is always there. But in what proportion? It will vary from time to time, from person to person, from circumstance to circumstance. Okay. Sagarika? Will you read this, please?
Yes, thank you, Lady.
You are on mute now.
Yes. And for children, is it also the same thing? One cannot say. It is a moral question. Problem should not be judged from a moral point of view. One should not say that those who always enjoy good health, to whom nothing happens, are good children, and those who meet with accident and suffer uh, catastrophes are bad. That is not correct. For as I was saying, the logic of nature is not human logic, and it's sea of justice. If
See,
it,
what is the
sorry,
word? Yeah, always they.
Sense. It's sense.
Ah,
The earlier paragraph, it was sense.
so please read C as sense. Okay.
okay, sense, okay. So its sense of justice, if it has any, is not a human sense. For it there is very little of what we call good and bad. It could not rather be said that there is what is constructive and what is destructive, what is progressive and what is restro, restro,
Ret-
sorry, restro,
There is no
retrogressive,
retrogressive.
retrogressive, aggressive, sorry. That indeed is very important
And
and
where are they
and
coming from? What
yes,
is it, Pooja? That is a way
I
that is.
think it's important.
Oh, sorry.
okay, yes,
That indeed is very important.
important, okay. That indeed is very important. And then there are those who are luminous, sunny, happy, smiling, and those who are gloomy, dull, misanthropic, dissatisfied, who live in gray shadows. It is the latter who catch all the unpleasant things. Those who are radiant, they might be radiant without it being a spiritual radiance. It may be just a radiation of good sense, balance, and inner confidence, the joy of living. Those who carry in themselves the joy of living, these are in harmony, harmony with nature and being in harmony with nature generally avoid accident. They are immune from diseases and their life develops presently as far as it is possible in the world as it is. And now,
Hmm. So this is a reiteration of what she said earlier. The only important point here, again, this is something which I was referring to, not to take it in a moral sense and not to label people as good or bad because if somebody falls ill or has accidents. And then she talks about how nature, the logic of nature, does not have these good and bad. It is progressive or retrogressive, constructive or destructive. There is no morality in nature. Earthquakes happen. Earthquake is neither good nor bad. It is a force of destruction and new creation. So, and then this point is the same which we read earlier. Anything to discuss here, or shall we move on? Okay. This line is from the chapter that we read. Ruhi, would you like to take this up?
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you. Uh, there is a prevalent belief that brilliant minds are found in weak bodies. I haven't understood this. These were old ideas of the last century. They are no longer in fashion now, but at the end of the last century, it was always thought that the more weak and sickly people were, the more brilliant was their mind, the more intelligent they were. Some even explained that the development of their intelligence was due to the fact that they could not draw any joy from their body, for they were quite incapable of living fully. So all their attention was turned to their mind, and it was thus that their intelligence had developed. There was even a time when it was the fashion to look a little sickly. Poets, for instance, put on these airs. An artist, he had to be a little sickly to give the impression that his mind was all afire. But that is now over. It was finished even before you were born, I believe. It was a romantic age, the end of the last century. Men like Musset, for instance, I don't know if you have ever seen a portrait of Musset, but indeed he had a sentimental and sickly look, and he added it to it as much as he could by his dress. I'm sorry, it's gone on to Wikipedia.
Sorry.
Uh,
Oh, I did something.
hmm.
Sorry. Where is it?
It was thought that it gave him an artistic and poetic appearance. But now this is altogether out of fashion. People favor a good physical balance, good health, a strong body, and all that is given by the physical training of children.
Yeah, you can continue. The idea is quite simple. You can finish.
I read a story by a very well-known French novelist. It was a novel which was set in prehistoric times in the Stone Age when man lived in caves, dressed in animal skin and hunted in order to animal skin, I think, in animal skin and hunted in order to eat and sell in self-defense. Now it happened that by some sort of accident, a child was born lame or at least deformed or humpbacked or something like that. And generally in those days, so it is narrated, I don't know, malformed children were destroyed for they were an encumbrance. But for some reason or another, its mother had hidden it and it had lived. And then this boy who had no means of hunting, for instance, or of doing all the work his companions were doing, had begun to develop his mind and had become the first poet because he expressed in his words what the others did by their movements. Well, it is just ideas like this which are at the root of this feeling that in order to have a mind, one must not have a body, and that the more ill one is, the more intelligent he is. Isn't that quite silly? It is true that there is a certain independence. I think I spoke to you last time about a French poet called Sully Prudhomme, who was dying of a very serious disease, a very painful and grave disease. And it was at this time that he wrote his most beautiful poems and said the most beautiful things to his friends. His mind was quite independent of his body, but still, this is not an absolute rule.
So when she says last century, she's meaning, of course, because this was a little
18th,
so 19th century, 1800s, yes,
yeah.
Korean age and all that, where it was very much in fashion to look frail and weak, etc. Anything, Sagarika? Everything is clear? Okay. Shall we go ahead? Anything to discuss here?
I just wanted to say that though my experience, because I do suffer from depression every now and then, I do feel that I do when I read my works because I keep a journal. Some of the poems that I write in that form of depression is probably more eloquent than than when I'm in a joyful mood.
But depression is due to psychological or emotional.
Hmm.
It's not physical, no. It's not
No, it's not physical. So here they're talking about physical.
talking about the body. You know, if you're weak, you're frail, you are ill. Ill here means physical illness. Sick.
Hmm. Yeah, but even physical illness, if you look at it, who was the person who wrote David Copperfield?
Charles Dickens.
Yeah, Charles Dickens was so ill and he wrote such beautiful works.
Yeah, could be, but that doesn't mean that if he
Or
wasn't, wouldn't have been able to write.
yeah, that's true.
That way, you can say Stephen Hawking. So we have to be like that to be able to.
No, we don't have to be, and definitely I understand that now the physical world, in fact, in art therapy also we take every aspect of the body, the mind, and everything into it. Yeah, dance, play.
What she's
Yeah,
talking
sure.
about, the deformed example here, we see it so often around us that people develop special skills with their creativity. People with deformed feet in sports or creativeness and everything nowadays.
Necessity is the mother of invention. It is, and if they had, I mean, all of us, when we are pushed into a corner, we may come up with some solution to a problem. But
Mm.
because there is the basic stuff is there na, in the mind, only it's not challenged enough in day-to-day life. So we don't use it. In the case of a physical deformity, it is challenged. But somebody who doesn't have that stuff, even if they become physically deformed, they won't be able. I mean, it is like saying that you have to give some to get some. It is like that you have to sacrifice your physical health to gain mental health or mental prowess. That correlation, she's
Is not
that's
true.
not true.
Yeah, but
Most
there are also people who physical, like you talking about necessity. We see so many people who are not able to get that push in themselves, or maybe their environment didn't push them,
yeah,
and they
who are able-bodied and also who are not able-bodied. I mean, the mind is a different thing, no? This correlation that if your body is weak, your mind will be strong, and if your body is strong, your mind will be weak. This was the correlation which was there in the 19th century. And that is what she's hitting out at, that there is no truth in that kind of a thing.
somewhere I think the society still looks at like if you're very nerdy looking, people think that you are very you would be focused, and because we ourselves look at people like that. If somebody is looking good and pleasant, then we think that they're not using their head. It's like the case of naming brunettes and blondes kind of a thing.
In women's case, though, it's very, very stereotypical. And in the West, more, I would say. Because I think they have so many hair colors and eyes, they can do that. We don't have so much variety here. But yeah, you are right. These stereotypes still exist. But as a norm from the society, it has gone.
I think the story that mother has narrated is quite relevant in the sense that I don't know what comes first. So it's children who are sickly, don't like to play, they spend their time reading, or they may spend their time doing something, gaining information or whatever. And in return, they may be considered. But I don't know if it's a weak physical that gets him to do that, or because. So, but that observation could be true, but I don't think the correlation is true.
So even if children who don't want to play or run around, and they spend therefore their time in reading, it is not necessarily that they develop a sharp intelligence. Everybody will not, and their thing might not be due to being sickly. It might be just due to laziness, which has nothing to do with the body. The laziness is again coming from the vital and all. No? So it's manifesting in the body, but the thing is from there. So one has to.
Yeah.
Nishi, have you read?
No, Didi, I'll read this.
Okay, this one.
In children, the psychic is always in the front, isn't it? Not always. The psychic is more in front than latter when they grow up and the mind develops, but it can't be said that in all children the psychic may be felt. And one cannot judge from what we have here, for the condition of admission I make when children are brought to me is this: if I see the psychic on the surface, I take them. But if they're already veiled by all sorts of deformed activities, I don't take them. So those whom we have here are an exception. It is the cream, it is a choice.
Okay, this is interesting. Because normally we think all children, the psychic is in front. She's saying no, it is not so. So again, it depends at what age, you know. And I think we were talking about this maybe last time or the time before last, that very soon, food with related in relation to food we were talking now, that the caprices and this distortion starts happening very soon, even before the child is 1 year old, even when the child baby is just a few months old, these distortions start happening because of the way the adults bring up the child. So that purity, that instinct of the body is already veiled or distorted. Sagarika?
But Didi, sorry, it seems like that naturally it is in front, but it could get veiled and deformed activities.
That's what she says. No? The psychic is more in front than later when they grow up and the mind develops. But it can't be said that in all children the psychic may be felt. In a newborn baby, yes, of course. But uh, as the child grows, it depends on so many things that happen. Now we are going into okay, we have time. Not so much time. Okay, who wants to take this up? But why are there greedy children?
I'll read.
Okay.
But why are there greedy children? Oh, good heavens. Greedy? That's not a crime. There are greedy children. Perhaps they have a bad digestion and so always want to eat. They don't gain by what they eat. The whole outer being is full of difficulties of all kinds, in everybody, in children also. You could ask me with much more justification, why are there such cruel children? That indeed is one of the most dreadful things, but it is due to unconsciousness. It is because they are not even aware that they are making others suffer. And usually, if care is taken to make them understand, for instance, through experience, then they understand. Children who ill treat animals, there are many of these. Well, that is because they don't even know that animals feel as they do. When they are made to understand that when they pinch animals or pull their hair or beat them, it gives them pain. And if necessary, when they are shown on their own bodies how it hurts, they don't do it anymore. There are some who are particularly wicked. These are under a perfidious influence, and at times this shows itself from their very infancy, and they are like that all through their life, unless they are converted, which is not easy. There is a sort of association between the physical and the psychic, and between the mental and the vital being. A mental being is very often a very vital being. A psychic being is very often a physical being. Children, just because this psychic consciousness is in front in them, live also altogether in their body. But as soon as one begins to develop the mind, the taste of association also develops, with all the deformations that go with it. People who make very strict distinctions between man and woman, I don't know why, for one is as good as the other, say that man is mental and vital and woman physical and psychic. There is some truth in it, but naturally it involves all possible exceptions and complications. There are arbitrary simplifications. In fact, the physical being has a simplicity and even a goodwill, which is not always very enlightened, far from it, but still a simplicity and goodwill which put it in a closer relationship with the psychic than the passions of the vital or the pretensions of the mind. And it is probably because of that also that in children, the psychic can feel more at ease, being less constantly jostled by mental and vital contradictions.
Interesting. This is interesting. The relationship she's highlighting between the physical and the psychic. That young children, the psychic is in front, but they're also very much in their body. Their emotions and their minds are not so much controlling them as their bodily needs, their bodily experiences, and the psychic. And as the mind starts developing, this sense of the ego, I am, this is me, that starts coming in. Then you see that also the emotions, the vital impulses also, you can very clearly notice in children. And this love of association, meaning they need friends. A very young child is happy to be by oneself, but then there is this desire for association, to make friends, to be with others, and that brings its own influences. And earlier spoke of, sorry, yes, Kriti, go ahead.
No, you go ahead later.
No, I was just going to the earlier she spoke about cruelty and greed.
That's what I was saying. She says that when children are hurting the animals, because they don't even know what they are doing. So it is so important what we are imparting, what we are, are as examples or teaching them. It's so important because they will know.
Yeah.
It's not an instinct which is natural that they will, in all the children. Some of them may be more sensitive by nature, but the others have to be made aware.
Sometimes it is when they pick up an ant and kind of, break it. Sometimes it is also curiosity because they don't know this is a living being and all, and they want to see what makes it move, They want to examine it. Yeah, so that's what the mother is saying, to bring across to them that these are living beings and they get hurt just like we do, and to show it to them in nature and sometimes even by experience, that which is something we do normally with children. Even when they hurt each other, say, if I do this to you, how do you feel? You pinch the child, and obviously not as hard as they pinched, but still to make them experience the pain, that this is how the other ones feel. Sometimes they understand just by talking, and sometimes you have to go further. This earlier also she referred now that there are rare cases, but there is also actual wickedness, which comes through sometimes from birth only. Any idea which needs clarification here, or is everything fine? Okay. Okay, who wants to read this? Kirti, will you take this up?
How can one know whether the psychic being is in front or not? Who? Oneself? It is not felt? No. You don't feel it? I am speaking of a small child, for it has no means of control and observation. It lacks the capacity of observation. But then, when one is no longer a baby, doesn't one feel it? It doesn't make a difference. The child nods in assent. There is not one of you who will dare to tell me that it makes no difference when the psychic is there. When one feels better within oneself, when one is full of light, hope, goodwill, generosity, compassion for the world, and sees life as a field of action, progress, realization. Doesn't it make a difference from the days when one is bored, grumbling, when everything seems ugly, unpleasant, wicked, when one loves nobody, wants to break everything, gets angry, feels ill at ease, without strength, without energy, without any joy? That makes a difference, doesn't it?
You see how simply she has explained, because she's speaking to a child. When the mother was, it's interesting, in these talks of the mother, there were all kinds of people present. There were veteran sadhaks in their 80s and all and 60s, and there were little children, the school children also. So anybody could ask a question, and the mother would respond. So it was not age group wise that she was meeting these people, generally in the playground. So for a child, she has explained it. And as all of us are children in the psychic realm, so it is easy to see, okay, when the days one feels better within oneself, full of light, hope, goodwill, generosity, compassion, so all these are gifts of the psychic. And when it is opposite, then one is away from the psychic. So this is a good self-check. Okay. Who wants to go next? Who's not had a second turn? Ila, you want to read?
One second. It's just that my internet connection is unstable with the video, so
Okay.
it may make a difference, but one doesn't understand that the psychic is something else. Naturally, if nobody's ever taught you what the psychic or the vital is, you cannot have any notion of the thing. You may say, today I feel good, yesterday I did not. Till I was 24, I knew nothing about all these things, and yet I could distinguish very well these movements. I did not use these words because no one had taught them to me, and I had never read anything, but I felt very clearly the difference at different moments and in what state of consciousness I was. But you who are here, after all that you have heard and all that you have read, and all that I have taught you, you should be conversant with all the movements within you and be able to fix a little label. This is this, that is the other. Do you know the days that you are in good health and the days when you are ill? Physically, do you know it? Physically, yes. Physically, quite sure. When you get up in the morning, can you say whether today the balance is good or not? It changes from day to day. That's true. It changes all the time, even during the same day. But when you have just got up, when just waking up and beginning your day, do you begin your day always in the same way? No. There are days when everything seems to you harmonious, and days when you are as with grinding wheels. Things grate within you, they don't turn around. Well, it is something like that. If you observe it physically, for your body, afterwards you can observe it for your sensations, your feelings, a kind of inner impression. And then you observe your brain, if the head is clear or smoky. Yes? Yes. So it is the same thing. Shall I stop here?
No. Let's finish. Read
Okay.
through. It's
In what part of the being does the power of observation develop?
oh. Yeah, stop here. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the idea is changing. Yes.
Okay.
So see, very simply, because she's talking to a child, so she's leading from the body to the emotions to the brain to this feeling of wholesomeness, which comes when the psychic is in front. Clear now? Yeah. Okay. Who else hasn't had a second chance?
Anuradha,
Yeah.
when somebody is tired, feeling tired and exhausted, uh, he or she has to do lots of work, but tired. That means the psychic is not uh, allowed to do it. What is it then?
If the psychic is in front,
Huh.
that is another thing where you've pushed your body too much beyond its capacity. That is a different.
Mhm.
I'm not talking of that. But yes, this loss of energy
Mhm.
does indicate, on the one hand, an inability in the consciousness to take in energy from work, from nature, and on the other hand, something which is not right in the attitude while working, which creates the tiredness. If one is in the psychic poise, then one doesn't feel tired unless one pushes the body too much. But when, if it is one is in the psychic poise, I don't think one will push the body too beyond its. Uh, at our age, children do push the body, but they also take in from nature. That's why they can run around without eating, without resting, for so long. Okay. Who hasn't read second time?
May
Yes, I haven't read.
I? Okay, okay. Carry.
Okay. In what part of the being does the power of observation develop? I think the power of observation develops in all parts of the being. You may have a mental power of observation, a vital power of observation, a physical power of observation. When you observe ideas, for instance, the train of ideas, the logic of the ideas, it is not altogether the same power of observation as when you look at a friend doing athletics and see whether he is making his movements correctly or not. That is the capacity of attention is there is in both cases, but it works in a different field. It can't be said that it is one part of the being observing the others. It is the faculty of observation developing in each part of the being. That is the faculty of concentration and attention. For the capacity of observation may not be confused with the capacity of discernment. Discernment is an intellectual capacity. Something like a judgment already enters into it. What we call discrimination, you can distinguish between the origin of one thing and of another, and the reciprocal value of these things. But that ought to be found on a correct observation. The power of observation comes first, discernment follows.
I have a suggestion. I think we leave these. We should
Yeah.
come back to this after we read the mental. Yeah. Because this is now going more towards the mental faculties, concentration and observation. We can come back to this after the mental. Okay. So this was the only commentary, although there are other writings Mother has written on physical, like about energy exhaustible, inexhaustible. There's a short essay she's written, and on what is youth and how not to age. And then she has conversations about illness. But I think maybe next time we take up vital education so that we finish the series without expanding ourselves too large, unless the group is interested in something specific. Any suggestion?
So it's nice to go down sequentially, I think.
Okay, so vital education we take up next
Yeah.
time. Yeah, okay, we'll do that. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Share.
Bye bye.
Yeah, okay.